now we're going to talk to one of the most respected voices in the economic field and in the field of discussions of financial reform, in my opinion. James Kwak, he's the co-author of the Baseline Scenario, works with Simon Johnson. James, welcome to the Young Turks.
Thanks very much for having me.
We really appreciate you joining us. Right now, before we get to the different Fed presidents and a little bit of hope there is in the system, right now the Senate is working on financial reform. And Chris Dodd's talking about a bipartisan compromise that he's going to get up with Corker and Shelby. My sense of it is that if they have a bipartisan compromise, that means the bill will be so weak that it'll be absolutely useless. Am I overstating the case, or do you think that's roughly right?
No, I think you're basically right when it comes to the issue of consumer protection. There are some other issues, I think, where bipartisan compromise is possible. But when it comes to consumer protection, what I think is, I don't actually think they're even going to get to a bipartisan compromise. And the reason I say that is there have been news stories about the negotiations between Dodd and Corker, but people like Shelby has said, you know, any kind of CFPA that actually has any significant authority, I will be against. And Dodd, to his credit, I guess, Dodd has said the CFPA must have independent authority. So it seems to me that they are trying to negotiate over some details to split the difference, but if they actually split the difference, both sides will be against it. So, yes, on the one hand, I don't actually think they will reach a compromise. If they do, I think it's going to be, I mean, we know the Republicans are not going to cave on this issue. So if they do reach a compromise, it's going to be a non-existent consumer protection agency.
Is there any hope that Dodd says, no, I can't work with these guys, and here's actually strong reform?
Well, I think there is hope of that, and the reason I say there's hope is that in the news stories I've seen, as I've said, Christopher Dodd, when he talks to the press, he sounds a lot like Elizabeth Warren. He says, you know, it has to have an independent, presidentially appointed head, it has to have its own budget, it has to have the power to write the regulations, and it has to have the power to enforce them, which I applaud. And frankly, if it has all of that, I think even putting it inside the Federal Reserve might be okay. So I think there's some chance that Dodd will do that, but I mean that would entail a different kind of Democratic strategy, because right now the strategy seems to be that we're going to try to peel off a few Republican votes and get to 60 that way. The alternative is to say we're going to make it a good bill and basically dare the Republicans to filibuster it and say, if you filibuster this, we're going to take it to the voters in November. Because this is actually an issue that I feel like the Democrats should feel like is a good issue to take to the voters in November. The other side of the calculation, of course, is that even this is a good issue for the Democrats. I think they are afraid that there are so many bad issues, notably the economy, that no matter what happens, the majority will get smaller. And the thinking is we're going to have a better chance. Whatever we get will be better this year than next year. So I think that's the thinking that's going on. But
I think the thinking that's going on is let's pretend to be bipartisan so we can collect more corporate money. I don't think that they are genuine about their desire to have reform in the Senate side, at least. I think that they want to do as little reform as humanly possible, so that when they retire, that they will get fantastic jobs with those same companies, making millions upon millions of dollars. So I think this is all a shell game. Am I being too cynical, or is there any evidence that they actually desire to do real reform? But golly gee willikers, they can't figure out how to do it with 59 senators.
Well, I think there are a couple things. One is that I do think there are some senators who want real reform. I think, let's see, Maria Cantwell, I think, for one. So I think there are a couple. I think the number that want real reform is a lot less than 59. It may not even be 51. So that is part of the problem.
It might not even be 5.
You may have a point there. And I think that the fundamental issue is that they want to declare victory. And I think that the bet that some of the Democrats may be making is that if we can have any kind of bipartisan consensus, we can declare victory, say we solved the problem, and then say to the American people, you know, we're governing effectively, we're reaching compromise, we're passing bills, and so on. And I think it's going to be it'll be interesting for a couple of reasons. One is that this is an issue that the left wing will completely break with the party on. Elizabeth Warren is not going to toe the line, if that's the line. And the other interesting question is this would be a major reversal for the administration. I mean, the administration, when it came to health care, as we all know, they said to Congress, we have some ideas, but you craft the legislation. When it came to financial reform, the Treasury Department proposed regulations, which I thought were weak, but on the consumer protection issue, they were very clear about what they wanted, and they have reiterated that quite often. I mean, this is the one issue that people say the administration has actually been pretty much consistent on. And if they back down on this, I think, the left will have lost all faith on this issue.
Well, too late.
It seems to me, okay, so those who still have any faith.
Let's talk about Obama issue, because look, when you talk about whether this is a winning issue politically, of course, it's the most obvious winning issue in political history.
Yeah.
And
well, you would have thought healthcare would be too, but universal healthcare. But
no, but this is even easier. I mean, they're going to go
yes,
after the banks.
You can demonize Wall Street on this one.
Yeah, and because they deserve it, they're 100% right if they did, and they need to do it, and I mean, it's so easy, I don't even want to talk about it. So the fact that they don't do it shows you they're crooks, okay, in my opinion. Now, I'm being harsh, but I think that they're all bought. And so not all, you're right, Cantwell's pretty good, Sanders is good, but I think...
Well, Sanders isn't even a Democrat, but yes.
Yes,
Sanders is pretty good.
Right, exactly. So but they're about at least 90% bought. So, but when you go to Obama, now, you said his original proposals were, in your estimation, a little weak, but now they're so much stronger compared to the Senate version. I mean, if we got the Obama version, should we take it and run?
Well, I think when it comes to consumer protection, I think the Obama version is actually good. Certainly, I think the one that they put out last summer, it got a little bit weaker in the House. I don't know what you feel about Bernie Frank. Frank weakened the legislation somewhat, but he also got it passed. So, and I think I know Elizabeth Warren said that the Frank version was good for her. So I do think on that issue, the administration version I would be happy with. I was much less happy with some other things about the administration proposed legislation, notably the fact that I didn't think they did anything substantive about the power of big banks. On this too big to fail issue, I think that their solutions were, moderate and illusory in their effectiveness.
I want to jump in there, James, because see, here's the thing, right? I don't get the Consumer Financial Protection Agency. I understand, of course, that it's a good thing, and I understand that if you put it inside the Fed or you put it inside the Treasury Department, they're not gonna let them regulate the banks, because that's the Treasury Department and the Fed have been protecting the banks all this time, Democrat or Republican, right?
Yes.
I get all that, but what I don't know is, and part of the reason that I wanted to talk to you is, what are their powers? I mean, if it did exist, let's say we get Elizabeth Warren's version, which is the version we like, and that's great, right?
Yeah.
Can they say, all right, you know what, credit default swaps hurt consumers. We're going to go in that direction. Or no, that's totally outside their purview. They're just going to nickel and dime with, hey, you can't do this with credit cards and you can't charge people overdraft fees and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think credit default swaps would be outside their jurisdiction as far as I can tell. So yes, mainly they would deal with things like mortgage lending, credit cards, bank accounts, overdraft fees, and so on. So I think you've hit on a good point, which is that when we look at what happened in the financial crisis, there are many aspects to it, but I'm going to mention two. One is that you had to have people making abusive loans and encouraging excessive borrowing. And a lot of that happened with consumers. And if we had a strong, effective consumer financial protection agency, we could help shut that down. But it will not prevent a financial crisis for a couple of reasons. One is that you can have excessive risk-taking and excessive borrowing. There are many ways you can have it, not just not just in subprime mortgages. I mean, we know at the exact same time we had a housing bubble, we also had a commercial real estate bubble, we had a leveraged buyout bubble. So banks will find other places to lend money on risky terms because they think they can make a little more money. So the Consumer Protection Agency will not solve that problem, and it will not solve the problem that we have these extremely large banks that are so economically and also politically powerful that the government will not let them fail, and they enjoy this competitive advantage, and it has all these distortions that we know about. So I think that the Consumer Financial Protection Agency is good. I think it's a necessary part of a solution, but I don't think it's enough on its own.
James, we had Michael Moore on the show a couple of days ago, and he said that he thinks a second crash is nearly inevitable. I unfortunately share that opinion. And what I've been saying for months now, and what Moore seems to agree with is, look, if you... I don't want to put words in his mouth, okay? The part that I think will lead to the crash, where we agree upon, is the credit default swaps. And they're 100% out of control. It's a $34 trillion market, which is insane. And they allow you to buy, if I'm understanding it right, on much greater margins. That thing's going to blow. And none of these things address regulating credit default swaps, let alone, I mean, at best, they will try to put some of them on the market so that we can see them, see the transactions. So you can get the Consumer Protection Agency, you can get this, you can get that, but at the end of the day, I don't see how this thing doesn't blow again.
Well, I have to agree with you. I do think that another financial crisis is inevitable. I do think that I don't have the temperament to predict exactly what market segment is going to give us the next crisis. It could be credit default swaps. It could be something we don't know about at this moment. But I think that the basic factors that led to this crisis, if you ignore the specific products like subprime mortgages and CDOs, the basic factors were compensation schemes that gave people an incentive to take on too much risk, the ability to have very large financial institutions that enjoy an implicit government guarantee, and essentially the idea that we should let financial innovation, we should let banks innovate freely and not try to get ahead of the innovations of smart regulation. And I think those combinations will lead to a crisis. When it will happen, whether it will be a little bigger or a little smaller than the last one, I can't predict. But
see, everybody's obsessed with the subprime mortgages, right? And I think they're totally mistaken in their focus. Were the subprime mortgages a disaster? Of course they were. I understand exactly how they work. But they were the trigger. They weren't the gun. And what we're doing is, at best, touching upon the trigger and trying to fix that when the gun is still right there.
Yeah, I mean, the metaphor I would have used is that there's a machine and they were the fuel. So they were the fuel for several years, but you can find other fuel.
Right.
And some people, I mean, there are some people were saying the fuel could be carbon offsets, right? Which is not, I don't actually think that's particularly likely. But these banks will find new markets and new kinds of exotic securities that people don't understand. Because essentially the basic mechanism is to create some kind of security or some kind of tradable thing where you can hide the risk of things going wrong. And that doesn't have to be subprime mortgages. It could be anything. And as long as we have the compensation schemes, as long as we have the banks that have these incredible market power because they're so big, they control so much of the market, you have the same machine, and they'll find some other kind of fuel to put in it.
James, real quick, I don't want to let you go without touching on the Kansas City Fed and the head of the Dallas Fed.
Yep.
Who are they, and why is their stance hopeful a little bit?
Okay, so Thomas Honig is head of the Kansas City Fed. Richard Fisher is head of the Dallas Fed. Thomas Honig so they're both people who oppose having banks that are too big to fail and think we should break up banks, and that's hopeful. It's hopeful because they're very serious people. The presidents of Federal Reserve banks. One of them, I believe, right now is on the Open Market Committee. So they're respected people, and they don't say things off the cuff like I do or Michael Moore does. And they come from what's also hopeful is they come from couple different perspectives. Honig, when it comes to financial policy, is generally considered a conservative. So he's what you call an inflation hawk. He thinks we should raise rates early so we don't have high inflation, which is something that most progressives like me don't agree with because we think that unemployment is a bigger problem than inflation, but we don't have to go down that rabbit hole. But as a conservative, he says, I don't like the fact that there are big banks that have a government guarantee. I don't think that the free market should be distorted by government guarantees, which I agree with. The progressive wing, people like me, the more important thing for us is that big banks have too much market power, too much economic power, too much political power, which they can use to rack up excess profits, which is bad for ordinary people. Fisher is interesting because Fisher is a centrist Democrat. He served in the Clinton administration. He's neither a kind of a left-wing progressive or a right-wing conservative. He's the kind of person that most of the people in that mold, centrist Democrats with backgrounds in the financial industry, most of them are in the Summers, Geithner, centrist Obama administration line of thinking. And I think Fisher coming out against big banks, and he's been against big banks for several months now, I think is promising in that sense. That said, I would say it's only, as you said, it's only a little bit hopeful because, you have an administration that is set on not breaking up big banks, and you have a Congress that is not, we'll be lucky to get well, we'll be lucky to get anything done, and we may not like what they get done.
Right. Now, unfortunately, we're out of time, but let me make a prediction before we leave. Okay. You said these are serious guys, but the guy you work with, Simon Johnson, was chief economist for the International Monetary Fund. Very serious guy.
Yeah.
Until he started disagreeing. And then all of a sudden, no, he's no longer so serious. Joseph Stiglitz, probably the best economist in the world, chief economist of the World Bank. Very serious guy until he started disagreeing, all of a sudden not so serious. So my prediction is Honig and Fisher will soon become non-serious. And the establishment will say, those guys, we can't really trust them. Yeah. They don't play ball.
Yeah, this is the populist, using populist as a smear. But I do think, the one thing that gives me hope is I think that, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, ideas may change. I can't be certain they will. But the problem is that over 30 years, the idea that finance is good, big finance is better, has essentially become ingrained in, the New York, Washington elite, the academic elite, the political elite, etc.
Right. And that idea is, I know, but that idea is awfully convenient because it makes all of them money. So it's not the ideas as much as it is the money, in my opinion, which of course makes it harder to win. But we're still going to go after it. And if you want to know more about economics and all these issues that are going on in the financial world especially, go to the baseline scenario. That's where James writes and Simon Johnson writes. It's fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.